Hello, everyone. Welcome to Popcast on the Rocks, episode 155. We're a podcast that talks about pop culture things that interest us, and sometimes there is whiskey. My name is John, and I'm joined as always by Andrea. How's it going?
Good, good. Happy post holiday, between holiday. I don't
Yeah,
know which one you want to go with, but you survived one, another one's coming up, so
that's right. Good to see you, and we have a
good to
new
see you.
face here that's be unrecognizable to our audience. Lance, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Got all Lance, if for those that are watching can see it got all spiffy tonight
I did.
because we are going to be talking about another James Bond book slash movie. We're doing the final film that has the big anniversary for the year. It was a big anniversary year. We had three of them to do. So we are managing to just get in here under the wire and cover From Russia with Love. So that's the main topic tonight that we'll be discussing in spoilerific detail later on. Before that, we'll have a few news stories. See what we've been doing on our holiday time here. But before all that, drinks, Andrea, huh?
Yes, well, it's been, I realized looking back, quite a while since we've had an episode of the pod. So I'm basically covering the entire month of December. So we should have quite the quite the range of things to choose
Well,
from, which we do.
right. I mean, so for anyone that's a little confused, we had been doing Monday shows and then we kind of got pushed back like to the end of the week. And then with an
hmm
anime show, it just a little jumbled. So
And the
apologize for all that. But
holidays. How
right.
dare we not stream on Christmas Day?
Yeah.
Where's our
But
dedication, John?
we do well, here's our dedication. We're now live simultaneously on three separate platforms.
That's right.
So that's the big thing. Alan here, tech producer, managed to get us like everything technical director, excuse me, was able to get everything going so we can have ourselves live on YouTube, X, and the usual Twitch. So pick your poison. Um, and speaking of which, what poison should we be drinking, Andrea?
Oh my goodness, you could really take your pick of anything, especially with this first holiday, December 5th. It is a USA specific holiday. It is Repeal Day, basically repealing the prohibition on alcohol. So go crazy. Pick anything you want. Pick your favorite, pick your least favorite, pick, you know, bathtub gin, pick a beer, whatever you'd like. But
Whatever's in reach.
celebrate the fact that you can drink alcohol because I do.
Cool.
Moving on from any alcohol to possibly no alcohol or very specific alcohol, uh, December 13th is Hot Cocoa Day. I don't know. Do you have like a favorite spiked hot cocoa? I always did like mint schnapps because I'm a peppermint kind of
Hmm.
girl. But, people do vodka, people do like rum, brandy, that kind of thing.
Lance, anything? Spiked hot
Um,
chocolate.
I'd do some brandy in the eggnog, but
Okay.
We'll get to eggnog.
right.
Oh god,
Okay.
because we must. Oh, it's still my like one of my least favorite things ever. Oh, I just can't get into it. But something you can get into, especially if you had any brunch celebrations over the holidays. December 14th was Screwdriver Day. So classic.
Yep.
Uh,
Hmm.
it was followed up shortly thereafter on December 20th with Sangria Day, which seems horrifically wrong to celebrate in December. I don't know of anybody who's like
Yeah.
really hankering for that sangria. I mean, I know they make holiday versions and things now, but I don't know. It's just screams summertime to me.
Kind of the screwdriver and sangria, really. I think
Both.
uh feel
Yeah.
summery. Yeah.
Just longing for summer days, maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Just dreaming in our non-dead of winter that we have because no snow. Um, but yeah, so Sangria Day on the 20th, on the 21st, we're starting to get a little bit kind of into different territory. It's Coquito Day, and then followed on the 24th December, Christmas Eve, Eggnog Day, my least favorite day. I've still not had an eggnog that I deem worthy enough.
Well, have you tried the one of the homemade recipes I sent you?
I did. So I tried the chai one, but I didn't like get the specialized liqueur that they'd had. I just like had chai liqueur. I don't know. It was not my cup of tea, so not really sure. Um, not really sure still about eggnog, but I haven't tried one of the
Okay.
classic ones that you sent me. So,
Okay. All right. All right.
but that's our
Still
last
hope for you.
official actual. Oh, sorry.
No, there's still hope for you yet. Then, yeah, you still
There's
got.
still hope for me yet.
Sounds like it.
I don't
Mhm.
know. But yeah, that's our last official like alcohol specific kind of day. And then the 25th, of course, is Christmas Day. So cheers to Christmas. If you have anything special you drink on that day.
Yeah. Well, what are you cheersing us with tonight?
I am cheersing you with nothing from our wide selection of drink holidays, but something from what we're about to talk about tonight. Classic,
Okay.
simple, elegant double vodka martini,
Okay.
because that's what appears in the books. I'm just saying, From Russia with Love is very vodka focused. It's straight vodka, it's vodka tonic, it's a double vodka martini, only vodka apparently in this book for James. So, cheers.
All right. Um, Lance, how about you? Bring any certain beverage to drink?
I did. I got a nice little Christmas gift, and it's 15-year Glenfiddich. So I've just got a little Scotch neat here that I'm sipping on, nice and cordially. So cheers.
Nice. Cool. So are you like no drops of water, just no ice, just
I wanted to just get a
sweet.
taste of this first, without anything added to it. So
Sure, yeah.
just having this is my third glass so far out of it. So
Oh,
not
I
tonight,
thought you meant
like
tonight.
since
I
I
was like,
got it on
damn.
Christmas. So so yeah. So yeah,
Oh.
I'm enjoying it so far though. So
Good.
we'll see.
All
We'll see
right.
if I want to
Nice.
make something else out of it or if I just keep going this route.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
perfect. Yeah, I wanted to follow one of the holidays, make it work with both our topic of bond and drink holidays, but wasn't able to really make that work. So I went back to what we did on last bond podcast was bourbon and branch. So
That's right.
the difference is this time it's still not as good as it should be, but this time I have the actual branch water. So ordered from Amazon branch water. So and I have a
Nice.
different bourbon in it this time. This time it's the Angel's Envy. And then because I have an opal bottle of it, I never drink it fast enough. I added a half ounce of limoncello too. So
Nice. How is that tasting for you?
it's great. It's very
Mhm.
refreshing.
Yeah.
Be the perfect drink to get me all the way through the podcast. So without getting too nuts, we're a little. I was drinking soju on our Mario Kart stream. It was maybe a mistake. It's
Oh
maybe a
boy.
mistake.
How did your driving end up as a result?
Really horrible. Very horrible. Mike was on there and said, "You have fallen off something fierce here." So, so next time, just water, I guess. I don't know. I gotta get all the races that I care about all the way up front. So,
no Beerio cart for you?
on
Hmm.
stream, no, I don't think
No.
so. I'm not a pro like that yet. So, all right. Well, cheers, everybody. Let's
Cheers.
Cheers.
get into it. So, as we mentioned before, a bit longer of a gap here. So, I've had a few I've had the chance to watch plenty of things probably, but Andrea, why don't you fill us in on how your last probably 3 weeks have been?
Yes, yes. I will present my meager offering of things that I've consumed for John. You're the main course here, clearly. um, but yeah, so I've been finishing up a few things, kind of moving forward on some things, and then starting some new things. So as far as finishing up, I have finished this season's Great British Baking Show, which I'm so excited about because it just warms my heart. It's the perfect show for a little like pre-holiday, belief in humanity and the goodness of people, and the adorableness of people who go on baking shows and try to look professional and make strange and wonderful things out of delicious treats. Um, so yeah, so I watched Great British Baking Show. I loved the person, spoilers, who won. I almost said the gender, and I was like, oh no, I don't know if anybody else has not finished it. So the person who won, I love them. So I'm really excited about that. And then I started the Great British Baking Show holidays version, which
Okay.
I have to say I have one note for the producers of that. They now do like holidays where they take like the cast of some show, either like in the theater or like a new movie or a TV show that's coming out, and they put them on there and have them do, like the baking show. That's fun, but I kind of like the old version where they brought back like bakers who hadn't won and had them in the tent, and I was like, "Let's do that again. Like, let's see those people." So, show notes, Paul Hollywood, if you are listening, you beautiful silver fox, just a little butter up before I present the idea to, yeah, bring back, the people who didn't win because I miss seeing their faces and miss, like,
Sure.
the camaraderie. So, just a little show notes there.
Sure.
Um, on other things that I've been watching, I guess sticking with kind of like a British-esque theme here, I've watched the second and third episode of 007 Road to a Million. And
Okay.
I'm a little more into it, but I'm still feeling iffy. And I feel like it's because we've gotten past the intro. Brian Cox as the controller, the voice, the
Yep.
narrator, however people call him, he needs more to do because he just really would
Sure.
be a great Bond villain, and I need to feel his, like, energy. I need to feel him, putting out his little tentacles and messing with people. So, yeah. That's my only note there. I like the premise of the show, and I like how it's moving forward, but Brian Cox needs to really get in there and just start being a villain. So that's my
Yeah,
notes there.
he really is like isn't he in he's in another show now too. It was Succession? Was it he in that?
Succession. Mhm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad he's getting some roles here. I was first
Yeah,
introduced to him in Troy, the movie Troy.
really.
Yeah, I think he was like
He's
Agamemnon.
Yeah, he's king. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I was first introduced to Brian Cox in Super Troopers, which
Oh,
is just
okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
a
Yep.
masterpiece of cinema. He is absolutely one of my favorite parts of that. The
Speaking
pistol with
of
the next person who says shenanigans.
Corey Barton is in our YouTube chat, so
Hey,
appreciate him
Corey.
being here. And so didn't know there was a 007 show. Yes, the Road to a Million is a reality 007 show. So
Yes.
it's have these pairs of people compete to win £1 million. And it was one of those things like the Bond community, to my understanding, was 007 day was coming up. People were excited. Maybe they're going to announce something, a director, a new star, or something. And instead, we get a reality TV show. But it's here and it's well produced. And yeah, I think I'm the same. Yeah, I've watched through episode 3 as well. So
Okay.
I don't know. Had you heard about this show, Lance, at all? Have you?
I have
Did you-
not gotten myself to watch it yet, so you know, maybe now hearing you guys talk, I'll have to give it a shot. Because when I saw it first, I was like, what do we got here? And then I was like, oh, it sounds interesting.
Yeah.
Well, trying to do a fresh take on something. So
Yeah,
It,
it's an interesting cross of like several already existing game shows, like The Amazing Race, plus
mm-hmm.
like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, kind of, I don't know.
yeah. It
Plus,
just
like you
looks
do like
better.
crazy stunts. Yeah, I mean
Mhm.
the production value and obviously cinematography landscape is gorgeous.
See, but that always the thing is,
Okay.
it always makes me. I appreciate something like I don't watch much reality TV, but I have watched like Naked and Afraid before, and that you can tell there's not too many people around. It's
Hmm.
sort of like you and your little camera or whatever, or
Mm-hmm.
even Ghost Show I've watched or whatever. But when you're doing something that's this well produced, it's a camera crew. Like it's got to be people with them and like bouncing lights and everything all over.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be a weird thing that you're out on this adventure, you're in the middle of the Amazon or whatever, but you're still being followed by like six people or something. I don't know. It When you start thinking about how things are set up, oh, there was a camera there already for them, or oh, they're climbing this mountain, but
Hmm.
they have a harness on, and so there's
Mm-hmm.
it's so clearly someone was there, helped them properly get the harness on. The
Sure.
Right,
rope was already set up, like all this stuff that you're just not showing.
Right.
That
right,
is fine. It needs to be there, or people will die. But
right. Yeah,
it,
I was thinking of like the woman climbing the crane in episode 2, like
yeah.
she's like there's clearly like lines there for her to clip into, which there should be because yeah,
Right.
like she would
Yes.
totally die. There's no way you could do that just
Mm.
solo free climbing a crane.
I
The
mean, it's just a good
liability is
chance that
through the
you
roof.
slip and just yeah, right. Yeah, that wouldn't be able to make the show. Right.
But
So,
yeah, it's interesting.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
Um yeah, so I'm continuing that. I'm persuaded to continue and see kind of how it goes. Um but I really would like Brian Cox to do more. That would be my note
Sure.
for that. Things I'm also continuing on: Blue Eye Samurai. I've watched episodes 5 and 6. Really enjoyed those. Although, oh god, I'm like so ashamed to admit it. Episode 6 starts out with one of my favorite songs of all time, "For Whom the Bell Tolls" by Metallica.
Mm.
And I love that song so much, but the placement in the show is so wrong. It's it's
Hmm.
it's so jarring and like out of context. And oh god, I hated it so much.
Is it a
And
different
I
version of it though?
Nope,
Like it's a
nope,
oh wow. Okay. Interesting.
nope. I thought it would be like some sort of, adaptation or, like a take on it or like a stylized version. Nope, it's just like straight up Metallica. And yeah, it hurts my Metallica loving heart to say it, but yeah, it's so wrong here.
Mm.
See, because it can be done right. Like Battlestar Galactica has All Along the Watchtower, and that's a totally different sort of
Right,
version. They add some like Middle Eastern flair to it.
right.
And then obviously Westworld is known for these
Yes.
like old westy piano renditions of, famous
Yep.
pop and rock songs. So
And
yeah.
even Blue Eye Samurai's done that before, but yeah, here
Mhm.
they just straight up sampled and wrong choice, you guys.
Mm.
Okay.
Especially it was especially jarring to come from an episode where, they'd done, like, a stylized kabuki theater type of piece to tell, like, what was going on in the show and, like, to do a sort of, I don't know, uh, just, like, kind of a mini version of what was happening in, like, a parallel universe. But,
Mhm.
yeah, it was very jarring to come from that into Metallica. So,
Yep. Can understand.
interesting.
Oh, Corey, if you're in chat yet, let us know if you've watched Blue Eyed Samurai. I've been seeing this make a lot of people. Our friend Phil has been
Loves it.
even, like he's just been like on and on about
Spreading
this
the
show.
gospel.
So yeah, right. And it's making a lot of people's top shows of the year, like in their top
It's
5
very
or whatever.
good.
So
It's very good. I really am enjoying it. But that was just my small like, and it hit so close to home because I love Metallica so much. But yeah, wrong place.
Lance, have you watched this at all or heard of it? Has Phil spread the good
Yeah,
word to you?
Phil, it's one of many that Phil has mentioned. Yeah, so we'll see. I've got a light January. Maybe I can put that on the short list as well.
Definitely do it.
Okay,
It's a really good show.
Sure.
nice.
Um,
All right.
Another show that I've watched that's probably very specific to my taste is The Gilded Age on Max. Season 2 dropped and I binged all of it. It's amazing. Creator Julian Fellows, same guy who did Downton Abbey. And yeah,
Mm,
this is just like his American version of that, but it's very fun. It's like roaring 20s, new money coming in, new society in New York. And
sure.
yeah, I just plowed through season 2 and it's excellent. So,
Cool.
and then for the holiday season, I watched some classics that are mostly Chris's family traditions. I watched A Christmas Story yet again. Um, yeah,
Sorry.
little Ralphie, little Ralphie's still trying to get that Red Ryder BB gun. Um,
Yeah. Mhm.
It's oh god, it's just so like it's so near and far. Like it hits so close to home because it's so Midwestern and yet also I
Mm,
hate it so much.
okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and then we watch something that I do love, A Muppet Christmas Carol,
Okay. Yeah. Mhm.
which I think is still one of the better takes on A Christmas Carol.
Yeah. Well, you had a good, good lineup here, I'd say. Good variety.
Good range.
Um, hit the holiday points. Yep.
Mhm.
Um, Lance, how about you? You get do anything? Watch anything very holiday? Is there something you have to
Uh,
see every year?
yeah, it was more of a tradition when I was a kid. So thought my own kids were old enough this year to give them a little taste of Home Alone, which I hadn't watched in several years,
Yes.
and that was that was still a treat. That was a lot of laugh out loud moments still after all these years. So that was good. And
Have you have you ever read the article by like some ER doctor who analyzes the entire film and like how severe all the injuries would be?
I I can only imagine.
Oh
Oh,
god, I'm gonna send it to you. It is
that'd be great.
hilarious. It's like 2 injuries in and he's like, "They're already dead."
Right. It's yeah, we had to assure my youngest that this is just a movie.
It's fake.
We don't like go and
Yeah.
like try and do these things, right? Like don't get any ideas in your head.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
probably
the
good
physical
advice. Yeah.
comedy was really hitting with them, so that was
Yeah.
that was
Sure.
good.
Yeah, it absolutely still holds up. I love the first one. I love the second one.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, yeah, I saw recently because we were talking to pre-show about like cell phones or whatever and giving kids cell phones, and someone was saying how today this just wouldn't happen because it'd be a text your mom like, "Hey, where are you?" and then that's it, or "I'm home." It just there's none of this lost trying to get a hold of them, get a landline phone, and it's not responding,
Right.
and just
Well, and I read something too that was, people, Gen Z, whatnot, watching it for the first time would, when they're wake up late because their alarm clock doesn't go off, and they're like, we got to get to the airport in 45 minutes. We're never gonna get on this plane, and they're like, 45 minutes, and you haven't even left your house. You don't have a prayer, right? Well,
yeah,
of course, the days
yes,
before TSA check and everything, yeah, you could just
that's
run
right.
right to your gate and with time to spare in a situation like that. But yeah, today that would, yeah, you wouldn't even bother trying to even get to the airport if your flight
Right.
was leaving in 45 minutes and you hadn't even gotten out of bed yet. So,
Well, reschedule and call in the
yep,
airport, new flight. No,
yep.
that's absolutely correct.
So,
Yeah, no, it's interesting. Just I don't know. If I was making a lot of kinds of movies, I would want to set it earlier because there's so many things that can be more fun when you don't have cell phones or sometimes when things are simpler, especially horror movies. Horror movies are tough, when you could just call for help anywhere. You got to
Mm-hmm.
always try to come up with a thing like, really, everyone's cell phone's dead. Really, there's absolutely no
Yeah.
reception on anyone's phone for
Right.
whatever, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
But then will kids relate? At what point do we get where a younger audience is watching it and just, this is silly because I would do this. Oh, well, that didn't exist then. Well, why do I,
Right. Right. Well, I don't really care then, because that's
Yeah.
that's not how it is right now. Yeah, you never know. So,
Yep. Mhm.
but
Okay, there,
yeah,
Andrew
we'll
shared it.
see if that if they ask for it again next year, or if that was a one and done. But either way, it seemed to be a hit this year. So
See if it will let me share. Yeah, I can share a link in our own chats. So for people that want to look at it, put it in the
It's
Twitch and YouTube
excellent.
chat.
It cracks me up every time. They go through like every single thing. It's just like, oh, like here Marv's dead. Up here he would have third degree burns. Part of his
Yep.
face is like melted off. Like,
yep.
oh, it's just
Yep.
excellent.
Okay, what else? What else, Lance?
Let's see. Recently, I'd kind of been in conjunction with the release of the new 2023 Frasier, had been watching the old series and trying to
Okay.
do like watch a
Nice.
season one, but as the first two episodes dropped, and then just kind of go on. So then I've recently finished the original series. I was about halfway through season 10 when the finale dropped there about 3 weeks ago. So got around with all the holiday hustle and bustle of rewatching the last season of that. So I
Was
always
it
enjoyed
new show
the
good
original
then?
show. So
Was the new show good? New season?
it's it was certainly improving, I think, in my opinion. Only 10 episodes. That was
Right.
something that I remark with other people. The original run, the network sitcoms of that era, 22, 25 episodes
Right.
a season was what were common.
Yeah.
So 10 is you're just not given a lot of time for character exposition besides Frasier, who everyone already knows, obviously.
Hmm.
So that was even evident going through the first season. The first season of original Frasier was, Daphne's character, Roz's character really were just hardly touched on in the first 10 episodes of, there was enough
Yeah.
nuggets there. You could certainly see there was, how they were able to cultivate those characters, certainly. But you would, if you'd have just watched those first 10 episodes, unimpressed, just kind of,
Right.
oh, they're there, but what are they really adding? So I know that was a big critique of a lot of people with some of the, the other characters on this show. Oh, and it's like, well, again, I just go back to, let's see if we can give it more time. Let's
Sure.
we can get another batch of 10, 15 episodes to what would equal an old,
Yeah.
Season.
entire season, and go more
Makes
critically at
sense.
it at that point. So it was getting certainly a couple of cameos from old characters.
I was just gonna ask,
Both
is
from
there anybody
Frasier
from
and Cheers. So there's a couple of
Okay.
legacy characters that make their way there, and that feels pretty natural. That's felt pretty natural, I thought. So that wasn't forced on camera, and the chemistry was there between those actors. So
Right.
I'm hopeful with to get a little bit more. It whetted my appetite, so I'd be
Cool.
interested in watching some more. Hopefully, so we'll see if they greenlight a second season for that or not.
Yeah, I had heard some pretty positive things. I was rewatching Frasier actually too when our kids were really young and we were like up all night and stuff like that. We definitely were starting to go through them again. I don't know how far we really got, but
Hmm.
still a great show for
Yes.
sure.
Yep.
And at least that it came back and is not terrible. That's better than I expected, honestly. That's
Yeah,
like
I was
that's better than I
I was
expect from
very
anything.
much trying to temper my expectations. It's like, all right, we'll hopefully,
Yeah,
you just never know. And
Hmm.
no, I mean, Kelsey Grammer picked up right where he left off.
right.
So the writing had some good moments. Had some growing pains, but yeah, on the whole, it seemed to be improving, and I think the actors were starting to settle into their roles and kind of, how they play
Yep.
off each other and in their scenes. So yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Anything else that you saw that recently that's been amazing or terrible?
Ah,
Or has that kept you pretty occupied?
yeah, not that's. I mean, that's most of it. Other than what we'll be discussing here
Yeah,
soon
Of
enough.
course.
So
right. Yeah, I managed to squeeze in a lot of things. I've had a few years where I didn't get enough Christmas stuff in, so I tried to remedy that this year. Christmas things I got in I almost forgot it. I watched it on Christmas because I almost forgot it existed. It was the Christmas music special by Hannah Waddingham, Andrea, not Waddingham or whatever I wrote initially, but it's an Apple TV Plus
Uh,
special, and it's the woman that I know anyways from Ted Lasso,
yep.
and she's a good singer, and so she put on this kind of Christmas music special, Home for Christmas, and it was good. I enjoyed it quite a lot. So, um, not too much cheese. I'm always looking for like these Christmas specials are going to be too
Right.
cornbally.
mhm.
Getting a little
Wasn't too
schmaltzy.
bad. Yeah. hmm I watched It's a Wonderful Knife, um, It's a Wonderful Life, and Bloody Christmas. So,
Okay.
It's a Wonderful Knife is has Justin Long in it, and
Okay.
it's this sort of weird, you know, taking some ideas from It's a Wonderful Life, I guess. And it I didn't know what to expect going into it. Oh, it also has who always starred in The Soup. What was his name? The comedian always in The Soup. He's in
Oh,
Was
Community
that
as
oh.
well and stuff.
Joel
Yep.
McHale?
Well, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
So he's in it as well. And it it was fine enough, is what I'll say.
Okay.
I was hoping for more. It's very weird what happens at the end.
So,
Um,
is
it,
it a horror movie then?
yes, yes,
Okay. Okay.
yes, yes.
I mean, I
I
figured
would
with a title like that, but just wanted to
Mm.
check.
I would only recommend it if you're able to watch it for free. You really want something that's Christmas related and you've got nothing else. Like that would be my recommendation there on that. Um, and then Christmas, Bloody Christmas, that is a newer indie kind of horror movie that I think was actually pretty awesome. It's about this
Okay.
idea that they're retrofitting these for the military robots as Santa Clauses. Like they've been decommissioned or something, and they put Santa suits on them, and they put a bunch of Christmas lines in them, so now they can like be in stores and people bring them in their homes and they can say Christmas things to be Santa or whatever. But it was used for the military and it goes out of control as one might anticipate. And
Mhm.
the movie is like it's kind of a trip. Like the lighting and color is really fun in it. It's just very atmospheric. They're going for that like faux 80s bathed in neon sort of look.
Yeah.
Um the characters are actually relatively believable, though the dialogue gets a little like they're trying to go like Tarantino almost with the dialogue, like very natural, nonstop sort of banter. What was it started to get a little old, but that was kind of
Mhm.
my only complaint. Otherwise, it was gruesome, definitely kind of a slasher. The music was good. Um, they actually had like it felt like an R. They had some nudity in there. Again, the great lighting. I have to recommend Christmas Bloody Christmas for
Okay.
kind of a maybe you have an edible or two you pop before that and you put it's going to be even better. So um,
Where
good
can you find
Christmas.
Christmas Bloody Christmas?
It's on Shutter. It's on Shutter. So, or if
Okay.
you have like AMC Plus, that includes Shutter, you can
Okay.
do it that way too. So,
Okay.
yeah, pretty new. Recommend that one. Um, It's a Wonderful Life. So the original of It's a Wonderful Knife. I never seen that one. That was our goal, Ashley and I,
Mhm.
to actually watch this one, a classic, and I really did like it. I was
Yeah,
surprised.
good.
For the age, 47, the humor was there. So you both have
Mhm.
seen it?
I
Yes.
have. It's been some time, but yep, I have seen it. Yep.
Yeah. So I was pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it quite
Mhm.
a lot. I'm still a little iffy on the message, just in the sense that like I understand the sort of broad idea of you're not a failure of a person if you have loved ones, basically, is like the most gist of it. Like how you
Yeah.
interact with people and the relationships you make, that's how you can impact people in a greater way than you could imagine, and you
Mhm.
change um, things around you and some of that. So that's cool. At the same time, do you owe it to everyone to make your life miserable? I mean, I get the part of it is you're supposed to appreciate what you have, but at some point you are responsible for your own lot in life. And he is going down this path where he's like getting to kind of dark places, and I just
Mhm.
I start losing sympathy because you have done this to yourself. And so maybe the message is you can still help people. You can still help your community without being, I don't know, like some sort of martyr. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I totally get what you're saying. I think that, part of the point is to just show George like, hey, your life didn't turn out the way you expected, but it can still be great.
Yes.
And also I don't think that there's anything barring him from making changes to make himself happier. It's just sort of like,
Right.
hey, like maybe stop and take stock of where you're at. It's not as miserable as you thought. Doesn't mean like
Mhm.
this path has to be like locked in. This is it. No deviations, no changes, no new branches. It's just, maybe like hold up a second and see like you have done some good.
Yeah. Right. I don't know. He's the whole movie. He's holding out, like on principle. I will not let this other
Mhm.
guy take over the whole town.
Mm.
And he just is like bankrupting his family for this. It's like you do. It's great to help your community, but you do have a responsibility to your family first, like your wife and your children, and they're gonna. I mean, they're gonna shut down your bank because you have no money left. I don't know. I
Mhm.
just I didn't know if I disapproved of some of his things, but he was
Sure.
failing in his primary responsibilities, his primary role, um, for the sake of the town. Now, is
Mhm.
that heroic or is that foolish? I don't know.
Right. Depends on if he saw that as his primary responsibility or if
Yeah.
he thought
Well, then his
for
wife should
him
leave him.
his primary responsibility was to the
Mhm.
town.
Right. Mhm. Yeah. All
But
right.
she
Well,
also
I mean, I
married
saw
him
that,
knowing
and
what kind of man he is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I get, but you don't know how far someone will go. You don't know how,
That's very true.
you know.
Mhm.
It's very true. I think there's a lot of like variables at play there, but yeah.
Yeah. hmm It made me think, anyways, and I enjoyed it. So,
Mhm.
it's, and then I watched Charlie Brown Christmas, some Gremlins, and Merry Little Batman. Merry Little Batman is actually on Amazon Prime. It's an animated
Mhm.
version of Batman. It's a silly for kids, fun cartoon thing that I actually recommend quite a bit. I think it was be
Okay.
uh, a good little romp for the family, and we enjoyed that quite a bit. So, um, I have more things, but I'm going to skip them because it's going to be a lot. That's my Christmas related things. So, yeah. Um, Of course, did do a lot of Bond stuff, reading and watching Bond movies. Like On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I watched that again because I kind of think that's sort of a Christmas Bond film.
Yep. My wife and I
Um,
watch it every year.
nice. Yeah,
Yep.
I kind of like
There's
usually
tradition.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right. So let's let's start getting into Bond then. And before we get into these news stories and stuff about it, being you said you watch On Her Majesty's Secret Service every year. Um, Firstly, what do you think about George Lazenby? And then let's expand that a little bit into just, you know, where you where you've come into Bond. Like, what was your first movie? Do you
Mhm.
have a favorite actor for Bonds? Like, we gotta know your history a little bit
Sure,
and kind of
sure.
all that
Yes.
on James Bond.
Yes. Well, let's try to unpack that a little bit. We might as well start at the beginning, right? The introduction. I think the first Bond movie I saw all the way through probably was GoldenEye, and that was my
Ooh.
introduction. The video game on N64, of course, that was growing up at that time. And I mean, what was it back, like TBS, I think back in the late 90s, early 2000s, used to always have like a 15 days of 007 thing where they would just play
Yeah.
them 24 hours
Mhm.
for, half a month
Mhm.
straight. And occasionally my dad would have, one on once in a while and be like, oh, they seem kind of interesting. I see some of these, chase sequence things. And as a, 10, 11, 12-year-old boy, you're like, yeah, this is kind of exciting stuff to see, right? So, um, but it kind of started then. It was more video games that came out in like the early 2000s, and
Mhm.
then upon realizing, having watched a few of the films, the first one I went to in theaters was The World Is Not Enough. So that
Mm.
was the first Bond movie I saw in theaters,
Interesting.
and um, didn't recognize it at the time that they were novels first. So then I started trying to find the novels, and at this point they hadn't come into reprint yet, so they were
Mm.
you couldn't find them anywhere. And then I think Penguin started republishing them in like 2002, 2003 ish. So they started showing up at the Borders in my hometown at that point. Old Borders
Borders, yeah.
bookstore, yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and so I started reading, um, just plowed right through the Ian Fleming novels, and then proceeded to go out and buy the DVD collection, and just I had seen bits and pieces of probably just about all of them through the aforementioned you know cable
Yeah.
marathons from years
Spike
past.
TV,
Right, but there were
Mhm.
so
Yep.
few that I had actually sat and watched beginning to end, uninterrupted, and so that was towards the end of high school that I did that, and I've just been a Bond fan ever since. Because then it was shortly thereafter that Brosnan was let go, and the whole Craig got announced, and the blonde Bond and all that stuff. And
yeah.
when it was announced that Casino Royale was going to be his first film, I was got really excited because I had just read the novels at that point. So I was like, ooh, if they do this one a little bit more to the source material, it could be a really good film. And it's that Casino Royale is probably one of my favorites. So yeah. But
Okay.
on to On Her Majesty's, yeah, it takes place around Christmas. So yeah, it's become a Christmas movie that my wife and I watch. And Lazenby, I think the first time you see that movie, it's jarring, right? It's and certainly when the first time I watched it, watched the first 5 Connery films, and then you get to Lazenby, and it's like, okay, his voice is overdubbed in a good portion of the film too, which upon repeated viewing, I don't even really notice. I feel like, but that first time through, it's kind of it I feel like is a little bit more
It
tough to
hits.
get through. It's just like, oh, this is just okay,
It
and then all of a
hits.
sudden it's his voice, and then it's back to the dub voice, and it's just a little, okay, which way are we going here? But over the years, it's just the story, the way it was shot. I recently watched like a documentary on it. I've got the 50th anniversary Blu-ray collection, and the director, he had been the editor on most of the previous films and went to
Mm.
Cubby Broccoli, the producer, and was like, I'm done editing. I want a chance to direct. And so, he got this chance, and it definitely was shot differently, than the first 5 films. He was much more quick cutting and just a lot of this and that.
Mhm.
And it was definitely not appreciated in its time. It had
Mhm.
low box office numbers, so he got fired. It never worked out another Bond film, and in the years since, it's become this critical darling of Bond fans. It's like it wasn't terribly well received in its time, but its mystique has kind of grown, I think, and
Yeah.
it's very rewatchable for me. I enjoy it. The music is always great, and
It's a good
so
Blofeld
yeah.
too. Think
Mhm.
Blofeld's pretty good portrayal there.
I think it's probably the best in the early Bond films. Yeah, between You Only Live Twice and the following film, Diamonds Are Forever. Yeah, I think
Mhm.
in On Her Majesty's, it's yeah, the portrayal is the better of any of the other actors.
Mhm.
Which it'd have been interesting to see if they'd have gotten an actor to have portrayed that continuous instead of
Consistently, yeah.
always having a different
Yeah.
one. But
Mhm. Yeah. Andrea, what do you think of On Her Majesty's Secret Service? When have you
It's an
watched it
interest
last?
I watched it last probably, I would say 4-ish years ago. So
Okay.
it's been a bit. It's not a
Mhm.
Christmas tradition for me. Um, but I remember even on my first viewing, I'd always heard a lot of jokes about Lazenby's take on Bond and just like his, brief one movie tenure. So I sort of went into it like really interested to see what his portrayal was like. I really found myself thinking, boy, he got a rough cut. Um and he just got a raw deal because he's not my favorite Bond. He's probably not my top 3, but he's not as bad as people make him out to be. And the movie definitely isn't as bad as I think
Right.
people initially made it out to be. That being said, I think that it's really hard to place within Bond as a character, as a franchise, because it's so different. Not only is Bond making a lot of different like costume changes kind of thing, like there's a lot more experimenting with his dress, his fashion choices. Um, there's a lot of play with shirts, collars, kilts. There's
Hey,
just a lot
yep,
going on.
a lot
some
of
of
late
them hit.
'60s fashion. Just trying a lot of different things in that movie.
And
Yeah.
and and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just hard when you think of Bond in a suit to go to like all of these different costume changes. It's hard to just, get your mindset differently that
I love
way.
it. I love it.
I it's and again, it's not a bad thing, but I get why it's hard to go from just this like very iconic and very, you know, like short range of dress into all of these different costumes. I get it. I
Yeah.
get that the transition is hard to make. So, yeah. I
I
like Honor Majesty's
there's
Secret Service. I really think it's interesting. I mean, obviously, like, spoiler alert, the fact that Bond gets married is like a crazy thing in the Bond universe. I get also that that would be very like, holy cow, we're just like code switching for this character, but it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. And I think just, sometimes people react to things like change is too hard to get into. And this movie
yeah.
had a lot of different things, not just 1 or 2 different things, a lot of different things.
Mhm. Yeah, eh, you know, pertaining to the costuming, hits and misses. I think the kilt is a
Yeah.
miss. It leads to a funny scene. Ruffles, some of the ruffles are a
Yep.
miss.
Yep.
But I love like the brown, like everything brown sort of thing with a wide collar, and he
Yep.
like gets in the guy's office and throws a knife at the board. That's a good look. But yeah,
Yep. And
there's
that camera comes to focus on the date that he hits, right as that knife
yeah,
hits too. Yeah.
Yep.
no, it's a good moment. Um, I love his car in this one. So they go on DB. It's closer to like the V8 saloon
Yeah.
and stuff. So I like the car. Diana Rigg, it's fun to have her in there. I'm used to Game of Thrones or whatever, so it's cool to see her in this, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
She's a great Tracy, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
but it's the plot, the setup, like marry my daughter, it feels a little bit I don't know. eh, It's an odd story for Bond, I guess. I felt like I was missing something
Mhm.
sometimes, on my rewatch. Like, really, is that the whole like motive and setup here? Is my daughter needs a man? Let it be Bond, and obviously get into other things then. But I don't know. So yeah, also just it's fun watching it with Ashley because she's like, he's so ugly. He's so ugly. He's like, he's not good looking. Like he was like a Australian model. He's
Yeah,
like,
he had no acting experience, which is just crazy.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like, you know, they would never think of today going with
Oh
he's just
God.
got the look, so we're gonna just groom him to
yeah,
be our next Bond. Like, like you
yep,
probably gotta
Oh.
you
yep,
know you gotta have
exactly.
like 12 years of stage experience, I'm sure, before they'll even entertain the idea of you coming, being the next
Something,
Bond.
yeah.
Now,
Absolutely. Yeah, he's not the most attractive Bond.
Oh. Okay. Well, speaking of the bonds here and attractiveness and all this stuff, Andrea, we know who your favorite Bond is. We know who Bond is to you, Sean
OG.
Connery. Yep. Lance, do you have a favorite portrayal?
I sounds like I'm in the same camp as Andrea. Sean Connery is my favorite as well. Um,
Okay.
Daniel Craig is a close second for me.
Okay.
But yeah, the original is gonna be it's just gonna be tough to beat.
Eh,
Was reading just not that long ago somewhere that people entertaining the idea of remaking, the Bond films now that we've gotten to the point where, Sean Connery is passed, Roger Moore is passed. You could maybe
Yeah.
update some of these movies. There is even some movies that deviated so far from, the original novel. Maybe you go back to some of those novels and pull some nuggets from there and flesh out a new story. And I'm kind of on both sides on that one because like I could see the merit to that,
Yeah.
but then I'm also like, but why would you ever remake a Sean Connery Bond movie all at the
I
same
know.
time? So I don't know. I could maybe be convinced of that, but I think initially my initial thought was definitely, oh God, no, don't do that. Let's keep trying to come up with original new stuff. Let's not try to rehash and remake things. I think that's part of what has so far made Bond unique, right? Is that
Sure.
they've not gone back to the same well.
Right.
Well,
He's not repeated.
arguably. I mean, there's been a couple movies that were like that's very similar to
Mhm.
to a previous one, but you know,
Yeah, Corey's in chat and he says, I thought Pierce Brosnan was cool. Seems like his movies were more serious, action packed. Yeah,
He is my second with Daniel Craig, like riding a solid, like close 3.
Mm.
And it's really it's looks. I mean, I also was introduced to Brosnan early on, so
mhm.
Goldeneye is just
Yep. Between
yeah,
the
that one.
game and him being the first Bond I saw in theaters, Brosnan will always
Hold a
hold a
special
special
place,
place. Yeah, for sure. He
of
was
course.
yeah the Bond of my youth, as it were. So
Mhm.
And yes, GoldenEye is the movie is awesome.
Well, okay, so a couple things. One, Andrea, are you on board with this idea potentially of remaking older films?
It hurts. It hurts. It does. But I mean, we've talked a little bit about this that, Nolan is maybe kind of floating around like I would make some movies very much closer to the source material and set in the era that they're supposed to be set. So it'd be kind of like historical pieces. Um I it, again, it hurts, but potentially you would have to convince me. You'd have to have like a really great setup, or you'd have to be
Mhm.
remaking something like, what we talked about earlier this year, Live and Let Die, which strayed quite far from its source material. I would love a truer adaptation to that book because I don't think the movie strayed appropriately. I don't think it strayed in a way that improved storylines. So if
Hmm.
we're remaking things like that, yeah, like I am on board. Obviously, it also doesn't hurt for me that that's a Roger Moore era film of which I'm less attached. Um, so yeah, so if you were suggesting a Connery era movie, I would probably have a harder time, especially with something like From Russia with Love, where I feel like it was very true to the source material, but potentially, potentially.
Yeah, I think I'm generally against it. I would be okay with the idea of making a film where they did deviate heavily from the book and then not. So Moonraker being a perfect example, we talked about that one
Right.
earlier, how
Yep.
that could just be a completely new movie, and don't
That's
call it Moonraker,
absolutely different.
different name, and
Mhm.
give it, so basically you're adapting that book,
Mhm.
but
But with a different
don't call it
title.
Moonraker, different title. Yeah, name the rocket something else, whatever.
Yep.
And I think that would be, no one would know any
Perfectly
different. It's the same
acceptable.
as like Thunderball and the unofficial Never Say Never Again. It's
Right.
basically
Mhm.
the same story,
Yep.
Right.
but they're different enough, and enough time between them. And I don't know, maybe I'd be more okay with that than like, here's the name of it. We're just straight up, because then it gets confusing too.
Well,
You're
what if
almost
they
making a,
remake then? What if they remake then Live and Let Die, but they call it something different?
I mean, maybe, yeah, maybe, but if it's more authentic to the book, then you're taking scenes from Timothy Dalton's License to Kill as well.
I know.
So now
That's
you're pulling assets from two films to,
Mhm.
I don't know. That's getting messy, but I like whenever we can pull from the source material, doing so.
Mhm.
I like that. So, um, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so does your stance on, oh yeah, I wanted to address, Andrew, your point too about talking about Nolan doing this stuff. Um, I don't think that's gonna happen now. It's sounding like
Okay.
talks maybe are not working there.
Not going
Barbara
well.
Broccoli kind of came out and sort of said
Mhm.
like they've always made Bond in the modern time. They've always done that. So
Sure.
this would be a big change, and I think they see that. This is just my guess. They see that as an asset for why their films have always succeeded. Is
Sure.
there Bond is kind of a constant in what he does, but the world around him changes. And so people can
Sure.
always relate to the movies because they're set in the time in which they come out. And I think they see that as part of the success of the films.
Mhm.
So I can't say that I wouldn't love to see Nolan do a few films as period pieces. I would like that, but I do understand them thinking like, "Hey, our bread and butter, and the thing that's kept this going for like 60 years in movie form has been not that. It's
Mhm.
been to stay current."
Yeah. I totally get that point. I really do, and I think it's a valid one. It's just they've sort of painted themselves in a corner actually in the sense of like the Craig era where they've been like, there aren't a lot of shadows to hide in anymore. Like, are is what we're doing becoming obsolete? Like, can this organization move forward the way it used to be? Like, we're having like public accountability now. So it's a very weird scenario in which like the Craig era has been like, can we be what we are? And they're sort of like self-questioning. So it would be interesting to see how they're taking James forward when they've already like questioned their own. It's a very like meta questioning of their own
Yeah.
existence, and in a way questioning like, can the films move forward with James being in the times and doing what he's supposed to be doing as a spy? Um so if they can answer that, I think that that's great, and that's a way to still go. But, you know, taking James back in time would be a way to sort of, I guess, skirt that question. I don't know, or like address it in a different way, just to be like, I don't know if we can do it in the modern era, but we can do it back here where James, is originally set. So I don't know if it's a cop
Yeah.
out or not, or if it's just like a side story, a deviation, a throwback. I don't know.
It yeah, I mean, I know a lot of fans want to first Corey Barton in the chat says, I
Oh,
would be interested to see Nolan do his own new story with Bond more than doing some sort of period recreation of
true.
Mhm.
or adaptation of original novel. I I don't know.
And the only reason
A
I
lot of
think
people.
I would be interested in like, sorry, just to address that really quickly, that like period adaptation would just be because I'm so in the books right now where you get that like feel of setting. And I would love
Mhm.
to just like bring that back. Like Fleming really has an eye for detail and a way of like describing the setting that I would love to
Mhm.
just get back to.
Yeah, it would be the more simple option, allow you to like really make it super feel like James Bond without worrying about going too far in some different direction. I don't know. I don't. I think they don't know what they want to do either. I think
Yeah.
that's why we're getting, and I don't blame them. Like, do you completely restart? Do
Well, I
you
mean,
like
that's what
try to
Craig's whole thing was, right? Because,
Right.
Batman Begins came out in '04, and then they hired Craig, and that was, Casino Royale was, kind of dubbed Bond Begins because that was that time. And it
Hmm.
was, the
Mhm.
reboot era of all sorts of different franchises. And
Yes.
um, so can you label it another reboot again? Because they, it wasn't a reboot when Brosnan came on. It was just here's the new Bond, and the Cold War is over,
Right.
and here we go.
Mhm.
And so yeah,
But
how
they
are they
didn't
how are they
really
gonna
reboot
market
it.
that? So
Because they kept Judy Dench,
right,
and there's
Right.
calls back to the, so that's me. It's like this half measure.
exactly.
You go all the way, and then you have like just the freedom to do anything, or do you kind of keep those tendrils that like this is still connected in some
Yep.
fashion? That's a
You
big
know,
difficult call.
and
Mhm.
short of kind of the Spectre theme that runs through the Connery films, and of course Blofeld. Um, no other actor's iteration of the character ever had a film that had any tie-in to a previous one, right?
Right.
They were all just standalone films.
Mhm.
Occasionally had a character that showed up in another one, but you know, you had
Yeah.
your J.W. Pepper in the first couple more films. You had Jaws that showed up in, but
JW.
that not quite the
Yep.
same as the Craig storyline of you
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
into his third, fourth movie, and it's still intertwined with events of Casino Royale. You still have Mr. White
Right.
and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
so yeah, you kind of did that now, so do you immediately try to do that again, or do you just try to write a new blockbuster James Bond film and then see where that goes? I don't know.
Yep. Yep.
Depends who you get to direct and who you get to star, I suppose, right?
Hmm.
Only the biggest questions, but no big deal.
Right? No, no big deal.
Okay, so there's several more questions I got to ask, but we should probably move on a little bit here. I do want to bring up the latest James Bond news for today. Again, not movie related, but Pierce Brosnan is in trouble for going into a restricted area in Yosemite or Yellowstone National Park.
Yep.
So this comes via Sky News. They have all those like thermal ponds and stuff
Mm-hmm.
in Yellowstone, and I guess he went into an area you're not supposed to be in, and we'll see what happens. I mean, there's you could face fines and jail time and all that sort of thing. I think
Yeah,
if anything, it's a little fine. It'll slap on the wrist, but
Yeah, I'm sure he'll just
yeah.
pay some money and move on. But
Yeah,
you want to ride in
I
my
did
Aston Martin?
I did love reading the story. Like, they were very serious about like the punishments. They were like,
Yeah.
yeah, people get like jail time for this, and he has to go before a court. And I was like, what?
Mhm.
Damn. Like,
Jail. I
I
mean,
just thought it was gonna be like a funny little story, and it was just like, no, 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 his like court date is like
yeah,
set for
right.
whenever, and I was like, oh, what?
A little more serious, yeah.
my thought was, he's been in Dante's Peak. He knows how to handle being around hot, you know, things from the center of the earth. He's fine, just let him be. But yeah. Oh, Corey says, I imagine it's just like Yellowstone, like the TV show. I'm not. I haven't seen that show, so I don't know exactly. But
Kevin
something with the
Costner's gonna come
gang.
out and just be like, frontier justice.
Yep, exactly. Mhm.
Get off my ranch.
Okay, and then the other thing before we get into the main topic here is you found this Andrea
Yeah.
from Screen Rant that's just kind of going down a list of each Bond's what they see as their sort of defining moment.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm gonna run through them really fast, and then if anyone has anything that you can think of that stands out for any number of the Bonds, is like this is the most memorable thing. This is what defined that character. Maybe you agree with some of these, then let me know. Um,
Mhm.
so 6, Sean Connery just literally introducing himself in the casino, saying Bond, James Bond. George Lazenby with the death of Tracy Bond. Roger Moore using his car that turns in his Lotus that turns into a submarine and like going under and then riding back out. Timothy Dalton in License to Kill. So in there he's like old bloodedly kicking someone like off a cliff, basically.
Mhm.
Using his lighter to
Mm-hmm.
start using Felix Leiter's lighter to start him on fire.
Yep.
Well
So,
said.
Pierce Brosnan for letting his former counterpart 006, go off the satellite with the fun lines for England, James, says
No for
Trevelyan.
me.
And yeah. And then number 1, Daniel Craig being tortured by Hannibal Lecter in the chair. The chiffre. So that's their list. Lance, do you have a standout moments, something that really defines certain Bond for you?
Let's going through all those is hard to argue with any of those ones. There is when that when that Craig scene made it in, because that was right from the book.
Yeah.
I was so pleased when that scene came in, and the chuckles from the laughter from the theater in that scene was just, oh, it's left an imprint on my brain. That was good. So I have a hard time arguing with that. But yeah, Bond, Connery's introduction at the casino table in Doctor No, just with the cigarette lit, and it's just
Yeah.
that's kind of the epitome of cool, I think. So that's
Okay. Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, that scene is just, I can never argue with that. It just gives me chills the way Connery just so casually introduces himself. I just don't know how they got that perfect mix of, just like his centered sense of self and coolness, but also just I don't know, his whole tone and inflection is just perfect. So, yeah, can't argue with that.
Okay. Yeah. Pierce Brosnan really, I mean, I love Goldeneye, but it definitely made an impact on me in Tomorrow Never Dies, the opening of that movie where he's trying
Mm,
to steal the jet and then
yes.
he realizes that there are like nuclear warheads there or whatever, and the
Right.
missiles are already on the way from MI6, and he's
Uh-huh.
like, I got to get him out of here. So I thought that opening was really good, and I thought that
Yep.
like Brosnan to me really came into Bond to the fullest in that movie in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. I think that opening, like he's wearing a really cool kind of jacket. It's a,
Yep.
a tense moment. He's gunning people down. I think that was a really good moment for
The
him.
Admiral where he would like his bombs
Yeah.
delivered.
Yes, yes, exactly. Everybody cheers. That's great. Yep, it's
Yep.
very good. It's um, yeah, and it's just the start of I think Brosnan's best portrayal of Bond in that movie, and
Mhm.
tons of great stuff to come.
Yeah,
Um,
it was, I think their listing of his moment in GoldenEye is like, their reasoning is what sold me on, like, that is a really great moment. Do you know what I mean? Like, the
mhm.
article being like, "Damn, he was, like, cool but cold."
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And it
because it's
was
not a
it was
moment I
they
would have
did a
thought of by myself.
sure. And they did a good job, like, some of these elements, they're showing something personal, like, really the, Timothy Dalton scene is a personal kind of
Yeah.
thing, and this is a good another where Bond has something personal at stake here,
Mhm.
and, it's a really great culmination too, because I think that fight scene is spectacular just before
I
that, so
I always liked for Goldeneye. I think it's his scene when he meets Jack Wade, and Jack Wade's just a pain in the ass to him, and he's like, in London, well, April's a spring month, and he gives him a hard time about it. I I always like that scene. Um,
Mhm. Yeah.
and he's like, yeah,
It's
another Brit with your stiff ass passwords and your shit, and he goes. Bond's like, no, that's just how we do it. And he slams him up against the car. Show me the tattoo. It's
Mhm.
like,
And there's another actor returning, but like, one of those threads again. So,
right,
he was in
Right.
Living
Living
Daylights.
Daylights, and
Yep.
Yep.
mhm, so yeah, I'm not sure about Lazenby, obviously not much to pick from. To me, again, the moment where he was coolest was in the all brown get up, throwing the throwing knife, throwing the dagger. And that's probably where it's like, okay, he's cool. He's cool.
But see, that's your
Um,
coolest moment. Is that his defining moment?
Well, his defining moment might be the kilt. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Hmm. That's
I don't
a
know.
that's a
I
good
like
distinction. Yeah.
I like this pick because I mean it's ties into something that's so unique about this movie where like Bond has a wife. Like
Yeah.
shit. Um
And
Also, I
yeah.
mean, just knowing where his background was as a model, not an actor, and to have him be so emotional, it's kind of cool.
Mhm. Yeah, it was interesting because the first Bond movie I ever saw was For Your Eyes Only. And that movie opens up
Oh.
with him putting flowers
Right.
at her grave.
Yep.
And I didn't no context for me at that point. I'm
hmm
like,
Right.
oh, okay, I don't know
Right.
what's happening here. So
Similarly, I saw For Your Eyes Only before I'd ever watched On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So to me, that was like, wait, what? That
yeah.
okay? Yep.
Mhm. Okay, well, I'll put this article in the chat as well if anyone wants to take a gander. But now we should probably move right on into. I had this other thing here, but it's not related, so we'll maybe talk about that
It's a
some other
rant for another
time.
day.
It is a rant for another day. You're right. I don't need to get myself started on this. Um, DC stuff, DC Comics movie stuff, or whatever. So.
Although I
Another
absolutely
time.
share the meme. I get it. I'm there, but yeah, another time.
Mhm. Okay. So, From Russia with Love. If I'm remembering correctly, it's Connery's second outing.
Mhm.
And book, I don't remember the book number. What are we on? 7 or something now? 6?
No, it's like
Um,
4 or 5.
I believe
is
5.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I can't remember how many we read now at this point. But yeah, I've got my copy here. This is the one I was able to find for this. I've been having fun finding so Lance, like I got it as a gift
Yep.
from Ashley Moonraker from shoot, I'm blanking on their names right now. The Folio Society. And so they have fancy versions of the book. And
Mhm.
Ashley thought this one was supposed to be one of the good ones. So that's what I got. And since then, I've been trying to find like used half price books, different things, and trying to get
Mhm.
like the oldest copy I can find.
Yep.
I don't have as old a copy for this one, but
Yep.
I thought it was an interesting cover. Though I will say, I don't think the image on here is representative at all of our lead
No.
woman in the book or the film. So,
Right.
but yeah, that's my version there. And I think if I'm seeing right, Lance, you have a copy. You put it in the front there from Russia with Love on the GameCube behind you. Is
I
that
do. And actually
the game?
Connery came back and voiced Bond in that one.
Ooh,
And he
did
was
not
supposed
That's
to
know
do
that.
crazy.
he was supposed to do more, but yeah, he came back and actually yeah, he is the voice of Bond in that game, and it, of course, they added a lot of new levels to it, but it follows, the movie, pretty closely as well. So yeah, I was like, well, I'll throw that one out so it can be seen in the background. So
Yeah, nice. So yeah, we'll get into it. We'll see how we want to break this down. Let's just say let's start because our journey here this year was getting into some of the books. So let's start with how we enjoyed the book itself.
Mhm.
Lance, you've read all of them, so give us your thoughts on like how did you
well, I
enjoy
mean, you guys have read it
reading?
more recently than I. But
Mhm.
my recollection is that it was one of my favorite of the Fleming novels. I think it was one that one I read more quickly than the others. I feel like so. Um, it just it had that pacing quality that just I want to know what
Mhm.
happens next. I want to read the next chapter. I want to see how this unfolds. But at this point, um, I had seen the movie. I wasn't, I didn't know how closely the book was going to follow the movie. And you know, in this book, Bond doesn't appear for over the first third.
Yeah.
thankfully, thankfully the movie doesn't go that way. You get, I don't know, 10-ish, 12 minutes maybe into the movie before you see him. So they do a little bit of that, but I some of the notes that I had from a previous read through, I highlight so much of the detail that Ian Fleming was going through. Different things like the Smersh office and the building
Mhm.
early on. Um, just his description, his description of Kleb in the nightgown.
Oh my god.
I, 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 I had written a note years back, and I reread that section, and I was once again, I was like, oh man, that's just, oh, that just paints a picture, doesn't it?
Really does.
That, uh, there's other books that are so thick and they have so much detail, and after a while you get just it's exhaustive, and you're like, okay, can we move on? Once in a while, I feel that with a book like this, but he just intersperses it just so quickly enough, and he
Mhm.
doesn't seem to dwell on it too much. That yeah, a lot of what drew me to this book was just you felt I felt like I could just envision every room that these characters were in based off of how he was writing it. So yeah, that's kind of my initial take, and
Okay.
Um,
So yeah, quicker
yeah,
read for
I'll
you.
let you
Like
guys
you
go
felt
ahead.
like you
Yes.
like powering through it, so that's good. Andrea, did you feel the same sort of urgency to keep reading?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an easy book to read. And I read it in several large chunks. I didn't read it all at the same time, but it was yeah, it was a fun book to get through. And I had a hard time a little bit with the unique setup of, part 1, part 2, diving into such the detail of Smersh and like their operations before we finally get to Bond. But I mean, it's something unique, and it was certainly interesting to get into the mind of like the enemy before and like have that whole setup and why this is going to be the setup, and you know who we're going to get to choose to do it. Fleming dives so deep into physical descriptions because it's such like a classic spy novel where he's setting everything up for you, the reader, that later when it's like these people are there and they have these like physical descriptor clues and you're supposed to remember like, oh shit, like this is that person in disguise. Like he's doing everything for a reason. Everything feels deliberate. So it was really fun to close the book and think about the experience that Fleming set up for his reader that way. So I really enjoyed it. I really felt pulled along. I really felt in a spy novel in the classic sense. And then yeah, when we hit the end and that giant cliffhanger, I immediately was like, the F, I have to read the next book right now. I've so far resisted temptation, but thank God I just finished the book like 2 days ago because I'm already like itching to open the cover of Dr. No.
Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't own a copy of it yet, so I
Oh,
can't
I
can't
have it.
start.
I have
Okay.
it.
Um, wait, or did I? I might have ordered that one in advance. Um, yes, Alan. I know I'm not that good. Alan shared a gif of Boris twirling his
Buddies.
pen.
Uh,
Click, 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 click. Yep. Okay, well, good. Yeah, I didn't know what you were gonna think of the kind of delayed start, not seeing Bond for a long time, getting to know our sort of enemies and our love interests and stuff like that up front.
mhm,
Um, I was definitely interested. I thought maybe things went on a little too long, but I did like to see. I appreciated that right up front, at least in my copy of the book.
my copy
Fleming
too.
is calling out. Oh, really? That
Yeah.
like I'm naming names essentially. Like these are people, real people, some of them that exist within Russian intelligence and in this real place and whatever. So I thought that was a neat addition. And
Mhm.
realizing now that like I was completely wrong about this setup. I thought, and I mentioned a few podcasts ago, that Smersh was simply renamed to Spectre in the movies.
Yep.
Um, as opposed to Smersh being the real Russian organization and Spectre operating outside of that,
Mhm.
make a way for the movies to be like, well, the Russians aren't just the bad guys. This is a larger network of all over the
Yes.
world sort of thing,
Yep.
So
Yes. Which
I
I
just,
really
I just,
like. Like, I get so bored when I mean, especially we've talked about this with, like, Marvel movies, for example, when they're just like, "The Germans, the Germans, the Germans are the enemy," and you're just like, "My god, okay, I get it." Like, can we do
mhm,
something else? Like, having Spectre feel larger than just, like, the Russians is so refreshing to me.
Yep.
sure.
And in a time when it
Yep.
would have been really easy in
Yeah.
the West to have made Russia the villain, obviously, right?
Mhm.
This was
Mhm.
62,
Right. Just
63, the height of
defectors. Yeah.
Khrushchev. Like,
Right. Which, I mean, they are, but they aren't.
right. It
Yeah.
certainly
Well,
gave
I
it.
was,
I think it gave it more longevity too. Like
Yes.
you can go rewatch it now, and if it was all about the Russians being the main enemy in here, uh,
Mhm.
it might not play as well today. Maybe it
Right.
would, but I.
yeah. Well, I do like continually throughout the Bond films having sort of M and MI6's relationship with the head of Russian intelligence then, because it's sort of this rivalry thing as opposed to necessarily
Right.
you're always the bad guy. You sometimes have competing interests, obviously, and stuff, and so that
Right.
comes
Sure.
out in interesting ways. But um, yeah, I appreciated the description of the armpit hair poolside of
That's
the
so weird.
masseuse. Oh, I didn't need that. But
So much
it's there.
body hair. So
Mhm.
much body
Mhm.
hair. That was
Mhm.
yeah. Oh god. Next
So,
level.
yeah, overall, I enjoyed the book quite a bit. It had a few moments that really stood out to me. Very exciting. I think it's maybe my least favorite of what I've read so far, though. I think the only
Really?
thing that is like making me debate with that and like Live and Let Die is the way they lingered so long on some things in Live and Let Die. Like we talked about before, like just unnecessary detail.
Yep.
So sometimes we talked before, Lance, like how he's like showing Fleming is showing his knowledge and expertise in some area. So
Mhm.
whether that
Right.
is through bidding, gambling, horse races,
Right.
cars, sometimes that's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, and sometimes it's another language and it's too far and I don't
Mhm.
appreciate it. And I felt like they didn't have that in this book so much. So I did really like that element of this. I
I
didn't
know
have a
ex-
Mhm.
moment where yeah.
there's a moment in a later Bond novel that comes to mind immediately when you say that. That I'm like, on a reread, I just like skipped that chapter basically because I was like, I don't.
Sure.
This is wholly unnecessary, right? It's like
Yeah.
you could have written this in about 2 paragraphs and instead of devoting an entire chapter to it, basically.
Sure.
Yep.
So
Yep. But yeah, okay, so that's enjoying the novel, the movie. The movie is definitely considered one of the classics for sure.
Mhm. And it
I
and
was
it
pretty happy
hews
to
it hews very closely to the novel.
which I did like a lot. I thought
Mhm.
honestly the movie kind of just took the book and sped it along as you would need to do and
Mhm.
made improvements. I felt it was like a just a tighter thing. Again, the inclusion of Spectre, having um, there's a couple more. I feel there's a couple. Well, they introduced gadgets in the book now too, but
Yes.
so I guess that was good in both. But
it's pretty understated though in this one with just the little traveling briefcase that he had, but it
Yeah.
obviously plays a major role in towards the end of of the film
Right.
yeah,
with that train fight.
and
Yeah.
like yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say to the gadget point, the traveling case is like our movie equivalent of the book cigarette case, where that obviously plays like a crucial role in
Yes.
our showdown. So I like that they kept it simple. Like it didn't need to be the exact same thing, but it was like the same essence of one thing being the thing. Um, but I will say I really enjoyed the movie, also speeding along much of the book's exposition, except for certain scenes like between Kleb and Tatiana, where they
Mm,
literally like lift dialogue out of the book, but not dialogue that would be naturally sewn together. It's just like, here's a line, here's a line. We're sort of speaking the same language, but we're kind of talking around each other. That for me was one of the least believable things, and I was really disappointed about it.
I mean, part of that to me, that scene read strange because we didn't have the insight into Tanya's
Exactly.
mind.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
the fear that was the improvement in the book is the moments of fear that you could really
Yes.
feel in different
The
characters.
panic, the
We
what am I doing
right.
here? Why is she what is this all about? Like this scene needed that. And so I wish they either would have just rewritten it or like, added another 5 minutes to just be like, F, we're just gonna have to go through how panicked she is.
But wouldn't it have been weirder if all of a sudden then Cleb leaves the room and comes back in a nightie. And I mean,
Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't think it could have been less weird than like her random touches and then Tatiana being like, I'm gonna be suddenly defiant, and her being like, I'm gonna shoot you. Like
Yeah.
it was
Mhm.
just so it was so off kilter. It was really tough. It was really tough coming from the naturalness of like that book scene to this.
Yeah. What do you think, Lance, about like, I suppose it was like you say, it's hard to remember, but there were, especially early on in the movie, quite a few lines pull. I commented on that too. Like it's odd
Yeah.
or not common anyways, at least for me, to see adaptations of novels and have so many lines wrecked from the novel.
Yes, I this one I think has probably it maybe it's just because it's the one we're talking about now, but I mean maybe Doctor No I feel like has got some dialogue that is lifted right from the novel, but I feel like this one's got the most of any one of them that and to your point, you'd mentioned earlier, Andrew, it is very disjointed sometimes because instead of just the way it's written in the novel, it's here's a couple of these words, then they have another exchange, and then all of a sudden it's another. And yeah, and I just reread that part just before we came on here, and having more recently seen the movie, I could picture that scene going in my head and then I'm reading this. I'm like, wow, they really did just kind of mash this up a little bit. They kept
Yeah.
most of it, but they really did just kind of reorder it a little bit. And I don't know if that maybe messed with how we were perceiving Tanya to take that situation, and not
Yeah.
getting that panic across as much, because I feel like she tries to in that scene, and you can
Mhm.
you can tell she's maybe uncomfortable, but
Yeah, it's more
you
that.
don't
Yeah.
you don't you that's kind of where it ends. You don't really get any more than that, I feel like,
Mhm.
in the scene in the movie. So
Because
Yeah, it's
they do
almost too
build in.
brief.
Mhm.
I don't
'Cause
need
they
like 15 minutes, but maybe I need just like a beat longer.
yeah.
well, and the I mean, they do a good job, way later in, like Casino Royale and Quantum and stuff of like getting you to understand how dangerous the larger organization or a Spectre or something like that is in, and so they do a good job in the movie with that. And they do a good job in the book as well of doing that too. Like, you don't mess with, they do that in the chess scene. It's like, come right
Mhm.
away. And he's like,
Hmm.
I am in trouble because I waited 3 minutes,
Yes.
before I finished out the chess match. And so those kind of things, plus with Tanya's fear and talking about how, something must be wrong and she's just freaked out, those things don't come across in any way
Mm-mm.
in the movie. And so it is kind of a shame that we're not like led to know, like, hey, yeah, you don't mess with this Spectre. Like they're everywhere and they mean business.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, the book spent, a third of the novel before we get to Bond. The movie, spends, yeah, 10, 12 minutes. Andrew, you're
Mhm.
right. Maybe just a couple more, but they were eager to get
Mhm.
Connery on that screen, no doubt. So,
Right. Which I completely understand.
oh yeah, I mean, they had to
But
condense that, but yeah,
right,
maybe
of course, you
maybe
can't.
just a little something extra.
Yeah, just a few moments because I feel like we really get the fear of Spectre. I mean, in the book it's Smersh, but in the movie we get the fear of Spectre so late with Kleb and Kronstein facing off, at Blofeld trying to like, you know, put the blame on the other for how everything's gone wrong. And it's like,
Mhm.
that's too late for me to feel that fear. I need it early so I
Mhm.
understand like all these character motivations. And I get it a little bit more why we're like setting up this plot for Bond. Even though it's like still adapted from the book, that was okay for me. It just needed like the reach, the power, the fear.
Yeah. Imagining Kleb walking down the hallway and everybody silences as she's like coming back blood splattered because she was just torturing
Yes.
someone, like
Mhm.
Yes.
those kinds of things. Yeah.
I needed that there, to Tanya, whichever way you want to go.
Mhm.
And her interaction was just a little bit too easy. She was a little bit too easily defiant. Um, in
Sure.
Club's
Yep.
presence for me to just feel like she feels like she has to do this.
Yep. But that kind of fits on par with what we see in most of the Bond movies early on. It's like it is going for a lighter tone. And so some of that seriousness, I was struck by when Bond is in Istanbul. In the
Mhm.
book, that's a very tense time. Like,
Mhm.
he's not sure who was all around. He meets this very interesting character of Karam, but he's now like, um, you
Who
know,
is the
you feel
best?
his you feel his impatience,
Hmm.
you
Mhm.
feel his uncertainty with it. You feel his like, am I doing the wrong thing here? Am I just being fooled? But we got to play it out and
Mhm.
see. And in the movie, it's sort of just casual. It's like, oh, we're just, we'll stroll down here. It's fine. It just all feels a lot more breezy. And it kind of it works to sell into that vibe that the movie's made with Connery, with just being cool, always in fancy places, and he can just handle
Mhm.
the situation. In the books, it just feels a lot more, he's just more uncertain and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
I guess I hadn't considered it from that, angle. Even though like even when I was watching the movie, I was like, oh, there's just like such classic like Bond things happening here. Like, in the books, Bond is described as like a caged tiger, like he's just waiting around from his last mission, like he needs
Yeah.
something to happen. Whereas like movie Bond is like, I'm out in the park, like I'm supposed to be rowing a boat, but instead of having sex with a woman, like,
Yeah.
there's just such like
Yeah.
classic Bondy casual things happening. So yeah, I think I get your point. Um I just needed maybe even like fear isn't the setup I needed. I just needed more background. I needed a smoother conversation between Tatiana and Kleb. A little less like cherry picking, like this is the exact line I'm saying. Oh, I'm cherry picking a line from like 2 pages after that and putting it as the response where it's not quite matching. So I think there
Mhm.
was just like a clunkiness to that scene that affects how I thought of it.
So now we have on screen here Karam. You said you love Karam.
Ugh,
What do you think of the
ugh.
book
Yes,
versus
Cam.
movie adaptations here?
Either
Because
or?
like it's quite different in the movie from
Yes.
the book. But the way he looks, I mean, again, they take some lines and stuff,
Yep,
and he,
I love them
but
both, frankly.
Yeah. I love that their storylines are the same, like, they
Mhm.
have all their Karam's sons is working for him, he's, like, got the run, he's got the no, he's got, like, the, "Yeah, we know what the Russians do, they know what we do, we have this, like, relationship, it's so different." Love it.
You could, and it, certainly in the movie, I feel like in the, if I'm remembering from the novel too, the admiration that Bond has for Karam is just
Mhm.
so evident. Like, this
Yes.
is a man who just lives life to the fullest, but
Mhm.
is also just so very sharp, even though he just seems to be this jovial, devil may care type of character, right? That's
Mhm.
um and you don't really, short of M, you don't see Bond really admire, that admiration coming from that character in the books or the
Mhm.
movies, I
Yeah.
feel like. So
Yeah.
it's a special, even for Felix, I don't feel like that same admiration is there that it is for this character of Karen Bay.
I think it's there for
So
M in the books. I
and
think that would be the
yes,
right
absolutely. I would say
decision.
yes, M, but yeah, short of that, I don't know. I feel like that there's something, this character definitely. Well, in this scene is, you go comparing the books to the movie. Just an interesting little note that I'll throw in here. In the book, well, he's holding that rifle there from the picture we just saw. That still,
Mhm.
as he's getting to shoot Kronstein. In the book, it's a picture, a billboard of Marilyn Monroe, and in the movie,
Yeah.
it's Anita Ekberg. And of
Yep.
course, if a person would note, when this movie was produced in 1963, it was the same year that Marilyn Monroe was, you know, died. So they
Mhm.
were actually in pre-production and planning on having that scene and having it be Marilyn Monroe, but then she died during pre-production, so then they had to come up with another international symbol to be the mouth that they shot Kronstein through. So
That is really
just a
cool.
little trivia
Yeah.
piece.
That's really cool. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah.
Let's see. Some other
What did you think?
differences, similarities.
What did you think,
What's
John?
that?
I mean, I feel like we all like Karim, but like movie
Oh,
versus movie versus book, John.
well, in the book, I really thought he was quite a character, and I understood best why he was so like I don't know. Sometimes you kind of I thought Ian Fleming did a really good job creating someone that was both a little larger than life and kind of believable too. And
Mhm.
I thought he was a really fun mix of like this guy is he is really out there, but he has like a really good grip on where he is and what he's doing. And so he was a fun character to read. Um,
Mhm.
in the movies, he's fun, but lesser so given I'd read the book. Like I never really thought
Sure.
about it before watching the movie, but like he's an impressive figure, in the book and someone that in a way Bond can, look up to. And I don't feel that come across in the film. Like he's an older gentleman, his sort of powerlifting is in the past and you wouldn't guess it, and all that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So that was the odd casting for me. Like his energy works, I can see where they're coming
Yeah.
from with that kind of energy, but no,
As a physical
I don't
specimen.
yeah, I don't know who I was. See, everybody wants Henry Cavill to be the next Bond. I'd put Henry Cavill as Karam, just
Yeah.
like taller than Bond,
Yeah.
bust up his nose a little bit
That
and make
physical
him really
presence.
sort of
Yeah.
brash, like yeah.
Mhm.
And then that's all the more fearful that it can make your character when he that Bond looks up too much so much has so many connections and all this stuff is helping them
Mhm.
along on the train ride. He's got already paid off. Then he dies. So like
Yeah.
this impressive person that he's like, I can be friends with this guy and I can trust him. And then he's taken out. Like he should be able to handle himself. And
Right.
this doesn't have the same effect then in the movie.
Yeah, I agree that his death was very underwhelming in the movie, and it was so good in the book. It was so
Mhm.
impactful, and it was just
Yeah.
crushing because I loved him so much. And like you said, because in the book he felt like such a physical presence
Hmm.
that it
Mhm.
was like, damn. I mean, he got murdered, but he took his assailant with him. Like he really, and it
Yep.
was like brutal,
Yep.
that he made sure that he was going to, expend the last of his like great physical prowess to take this guy with him. Um, yeah. And it makes him, pre-death all the more interesting that he's such a jovial figure that there's an element of danger in the fact that like he's a physical specimen too, and that joviality can give way to this incredible prowess.
Yeah. And Lance, like you said, like he has you know, is jovial, but then has a wisdom to him too, or whatever. It was like an
Mhm.
intelligence and like what, and
Mhm.
that again didn't come across in the movie as much to me. He just was the jovial side of it.
Very much so. Short of maybe their first encounter when he first meets him, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think then he's coming across as this very, well-informed person that he is and should be as the head of the station there. And then after that, yeah, he does kind of seem to maybe not play on that as much. Um,
Mhm.
um, I'm trying to think because you're right, Andrea. His death just doesn't hit the same in the movie as it
Mhm.
does in the book. Um,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and just
I
trying to
was kind of
think
like, I
of
knew it's coming, but didn't expect it still
right.
in
Yeah.
the book.
And looking at the portrayal of the character in the movie, you know, would they have benefited from trying to, would it have been just as simply just the right looking actor, would, with that physical presence,
Hmm.
would that have made enough of a difference, or did they need to, do something else with that character, and maybe the actor that did portray Karam, you know, could have pulled that off just as well if, you
Sure.
know, I don't know what they
It's a
might
good
have done,
question.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Another thing I liked really about the movie though is the way that they got the Lecter. So again, some of the things I'm saying were the improvements to the book is so in the book, it's a
Yes.
lot of like, well, Tanya's, I'll take care of it. We sort of don't see it. She shows up with it on the train. Instead, the movies do a good job of often giving Bond a little more autonomy. I commented on that in the last book we read in Diamonds Are Forever, like Bond getting to show off some prowess and be a little more steering of
Hmm.
the reins at times than sometimes so much on luck. And I thought in the movie they did a good job then of, well, Bond has to figure out how to get the Lector, and it's actually a really
Hmm.
good way to. This is when we blow up the Russian area and consulate and
Yeah.
stuff. Instead of like, oh, Karam dies off screen, we blow up because he's now dead or whatever. We detonate that bomb. So I
Mhm.
just thought it was, again, for a visual storytelling medium, making us something exciting visual to see as a whole big sequence that we wouldn't have had otherwise. So
I agree. I think in the book it really works to like have them blow up the consulate later and you feel more like for Kareem.
sure,
Whereas in the movie
sure.
it's like, this makes a lot more sense. Like you said, there's a little more excitement in getting this. There's a little more agency. We're not just like seeing her show up on the train. Um, and then also I just have to comment, I love that they changed for the movie because they already have Spectre as the organization. The Spectre machine is now the Lecter machine.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, it was very
Yep.
funny. It just hit me like right away. I was like, well, I
Mhm.
can't have a Spectre who's trying to steal a Spectre machine.
Right.
Yeah.
Little
Isn't it
little too
yours already?
little too
Right?
redundant, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Yep. No, that's true. I, again, there's a few more improvements. I think there is an improvement in the movie with our end sequence. I was actually reading the book and kind of tired of another villain explaining the plan. But in the movie, it worked for me a lot. It felt more realistic than it did in the book. And that whole sequence of getting him, kind of tricking him to open the case, I also thought was a better way than like quickly trying to shove, hope I get this in the right spot. They sort of proved his accuracy by shooting his wristwatch off. A lot of that read is too unbelievable for me. When sometimes the book, a lot of times, most of the time, the books are more grounded. The whole sequence seemed more out there than the film, and I actually enjoyed the film version.
oh my gosh, I'm immediately gonna have to disagree with you, John.
Okay, all right,
Yeah. No, I
go
thought the
for it.
book, like, it totally so maybe not shooting the wristwatch, maybe that was a little bit much. But I thought like Grant spilling everything in the book was so natural because he
Hmm.
was so eager to show Bond like how they were gonna embarrass him. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, "You're so
Mhm.
stupid, you haven't put the pieces together. Like, we're gonna do this to you, and you're gonna be so embarrassed. Your whole organization is gonna be embarrassed." And I just was, like, feeling all of that reveal right up until I have in the show notes, like, he was like, "Oh, and then I'm supposed to meet, Kleb at room
At this
204
room,
in X."
yes, yes, yes,
That was like,
exactly.
that's so stupid, like, that's wildly unnatural. But everything up until then when he was like, "Can you see the headlines? We have film, we have, a letter that we're gonna write." It was just I was so there.
Mhm.
I was really in it. So I mean, I thought the version of this conversation in the movie worked also, but I really enjoyed the book a lot.
What do you think, Lance?
I it's a great scene in the movie. I did quickly reread that scene today, and how he sets that up with him waking up from his nap in the book, and we talked about not feeling Tanya's sense of panic and fear and danger when she's meeting Kleb. Man, when he wakes up from that nap and he just says, what's that I sense? And he's like, it's danger. It's danger. Something is amiss here. And it just gets the hairs raising up. It's like, oh man, you could just
tingles.
And you didn't quite feel that from Bond in that scene in the movie, but I love the scene in the movie. I've got no issues with how they did that in the movie, and then the fight scene itself is also just spectacular.
Yeah, I love that. I love their
the
fight
ensuing
scene.
Fight scene, yeah, is an awesome visual fight scene to watch. But yeah, just my initial reaction was, wow, I had kind of forgotten that's how that scene all started in the book. So when I reread that, and it was just, wow. Like, as you said, Andrew, I was there. It was, you could feel Grant's eyes just on you, just piercing and just, ooh. Yeah, that's...
So I loved all that stuff leading up to it. The eye stuff for Grant was great. Like him analyzing like the peak inside where they're burning red and then it's gone. Yep. I loved all that sort of thing.
And Bond slowly recognizing, oh, that's madness. That's madness. Yes. I see in this guy's eyes. Like,
yes.
Yeah. I thought that was just really well written. Yeah, that.
And him like trying to talk out of it. Like, are you by any chance ruled by the moon? And like, is there any,
in a moment, just, and as you're reading it, of course, Bond, the character, is coming up, thinking of these things split secondly in this, situation. Yeah.
I again, though, when it comes down to that scene, prefer the movie in another aspect where they have, again, it's giving Bond a little more agency. Bond recognizes that, hey, what did you slip in her drink? He understands, like, that's,
I agree with that.
Again, he notices something. And then, he still at that moment, though, thinks that Grant is one of their own. And so, because he points a gun at him and then puts it down, it's like, okay, you just like kind of got Tanya out of the way here. But it was still a moment that where we got to that confrontation in this situation made more sense to me. Whereas in the book, to me, anyways, I get if you make the argument he wants to spill his guts, but to me, he is a paid assassin that enjoys the killing. He's not there about embarrassing Bond. Like, does he care about embarrassing Bond? Russia cares about embarrassing Bond.
Right. But he's an agent of Smersh at that point. Like, he's so like company man that he would totally just be like, God, we're gonna embarrass you. And like Smersh wants me to embarrass you and Britain.
But none of that will matter when he's dead. To me, what would happen in the book is the Bond would be sleeping, Tanya would be passed out. They go into the tunnel, and he would stick his gun up to Bond, shoot him, and then shoot Tanya in the back of the head, never waking them up because he's a professional assassin. He loves doing this. And he wants a promotion. He wants to be recognized. Get the job done. It's done and out, as opposed to like, I kind of knock you awake and then, we have this little discussion and I'm going to give it to you. Right. But it doesn't matter because you may be dead in 4 seconds anyways.
I don't think so, because of the whole book setup where they're just so eager to like deliver the embarrassment. I do feel like they're eager to deliver the embarrassment and have it delivered even to a dead man. They're just so like ready to be like, we got you. And you have to know it right before you die, because it's satisfying for us to know that you knew it before you died. So that when Red Grant reports back, that's when we can know like Bond felt that humiliation before he died.
Yeah, that was his last thought.
For them. Yes, that's for them. So that's where like I felt it in my mind, where that felt believable. Again, right up until he was like, then I'm going to meet Rosa Klebb and I'm gonna knock like this and she's gonna pay me, whatever.
Unless yeah, I would want that set up. Like this is part of your directive. Like if that happened, I don't remember it. Like you're gonna let him know. You have to get him in the situation
Sure.
where you can tell him how his whole organization, his reputation, everything is gonna be embarrassed. The pictures, the videos, all gonna be released. Your sex tape is put on TikTok. That's what's happening
Right.
here. And
Uh,
But
but
I felt like it was
okay,
implicit for me knowing how
sure.
much like we'd gone through in those 90 pages of how they wanted to embarrass Bond. Whereas like the
Hmm.
movie, it still worked. It just wasn't like that wasn't my motivation.
Hmm. I definitely liked Kleb's knife boot trick better in the
Mhm.
book. It was always
Mhm.
been a kind of silly scene in the movie. It's her little knife boot shuffle. Um, and in the book, it just made total sense. She's
Yeah.
pinned against the wall. She's gonna be caught. Last minute, kind of stab him. He doesn't see it coming. I
yep.
like that a lot
Mhm.
better.
Yeah, just the sensation of getting kicked in the calf and he's not even, aware that he was
Yeah.
stabbed. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm. Okay. What have we missed? What must be said about the book or movie or comparisons here yet?
I mean, the gypsy camp, right? I mean,
Oh god, so good.
that's a pretty memorable scene.
Mhm.
Um,
I liked it in both iterations.
yeah, and in the film, it's when oh gosh, the gypsy camp leader, when
Vavra.
Bond gets
Oh,
down, yeah, there you go, and from the first time I saw it, it still just always it just gives me a chuckle when Bond tells him to get down and he shoots the guy, and I was like, thank you. It's just
Yeah.
for whatever reason I just get so amused at that. It just every time it just hits me. Uh, but the intensity of the build up, um, of the cat fight as it were, and then just the
Mhm.
chaos of Spectre
Yeah, the
coming in
ambush.
and just yeah. Um, I feel like they did a pretty good job of taking what was a well written, scene in the book and putting that to film.
yeah.
I
Amp
think
it up a little
it
bit.
captured it pretty well. Yeah,
Yeah, because it was pretty brief, descriptive wise and some page count wise and stuff like that in the book. And I just felt like it seemed just like the book, but just we got to see a little bit more of it,
hmm
Mhm.
and so that was good. I called them cowards for not having the nudity in the cat
The
fight.
full
You know,
nudity. Yeah.
yeah,
yep,
yeah.
it's a couple moments they're just cowardly, but I understand.
So so I do want to say I love the different versions of this scene because in the books it's very insightful into James like character and his relationship with other people where he's like I'm gonna shoot people and get, like the Vavra is now in his debt and he's like, please resolve this matter between the two girls. And he does. And then in
Yeah.
the movie, it's so like it's it's so movie James where like the resolution
Decide
is
which
like,
one is better or something.
right, like
Yeah.
take both of them into bed. And he's
Yep.
like,
Yeah,
oh
Well, of
my,
course.
like
it's gonna
it's
take some
it's
time.
it's just the way that they do it in the books is so like books James Bond, and then the way they resolve that scene in the movie is so movie James Bond that I
Yep.
really enjoyed it. That I was just
Mm,
like, what a great way to do this.
yep. Yep. I agree.
So,
I liked the moment too in the camp there where Bond saves Karam. And again, you're talking about kind of the
mhm,
way that they think and stuff. And he's like, I'm no use to you. I guess to say in the movie too, but I'm no use to you now. Like you've saved me too many
right.
times.
Right.
Just kind of an interesting way to look at it. Like we're gonna be partners here together. We're each doing our own thing, pulling our weight, kind of like we're two alphas here. But
Yeah.
now you've saved me too many times and I can't be looked at the same way. And Bond's like,
And
I'm not
Bond's
gonna.
Right.
response in the movies I've always loved. How can a friend be in debt? Right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
Yep.
It
yeah,
gives
I
you a
love their
little, gives you a little
relationship.
shot into James Bond. He's like, he's not keeping a ledger on this. He's like, this is just
Right.
part of the profession we signed up to be in, and we've
Exactly.
developed a bond. And you know, it's probably might be the only time he ever refers to somebody as a friend.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Like in the movies. I mean,
yeah,
Just
it's a
maybe Felix, probably Felix at some point. I'm
Felix.
probably forgetting, but you know,
yeah.
Felix with
short of that,
Dalton when
yeah,
he gets eaten up.
yes,
Mm.
yeah.
No, it's a great relationship that they have, and I really feel like it's indicative. It could be a throwaway line, but it's also very indicative of like Bond really feels like this could turn the other way at any moment. So just don't
Right,
think
yeah,
of
very
it.
much so. Yes, I think Shu could very easily be on the other foot. So
Right.
yeah,
I definitely got the impression in the book more than the movie that, you know, again, it's looking into his mind like, am I being foolish here? In the movie, it didn't feel like this is a foolish operation necessarily. You know,
Mhm.
in the book, it's like, is he really just, you know, thinking, in his pants too much here? Is it just too much to call for excitement? The mystery of it. Is this
Mhm.
really? Yeah, and the movie, it's like just feels more like, oh, this is what is supposed. This is the mission. This is going to happen because
Right.
I don't know.
We're
Does
just
it
gonna play it
feel
out.
different to you guys? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it did feel different, but again, it's movie James and book James. It's,
yeah, hmm yeah. This shot
I
right
don't
here
know.
actually reminds me of a scene I have to. The screenshot's in here somewhere, but I thought was the funniest moment in the movie was definitely Bond is recording
yeah,
her interview
Oh,
with
yeah,
Tanya, and then
that's
M and
my
everybody's
favorite.
listening in,
yep.
and then he pauses it when
Once
yeah,
I
and
was
it
with
says
them in Tokyo, we had an
yeah,
interesting experience.
that was great. I thought that was great.
Yes, that's
Yes,
that's such classic
my
movie
wife
James.
will frequently say, "Dushka, tell me the truth," right from that scene.
That's so great.
Uh, yep,
I could totally see Allie doing that.
yep. Dushka, tell me the truth.
Uh,
Yeah, no, that's such perfect tie-ins for movie James where, they're saying something awkward and like, the group is listening in or like Moneypenny is just like giggling, like listening to his exploits.
yep,
It's perfect.
Just enough of a
yep,
lighthearted touch, right? It's
Yes.
yep,
not too much, but yeah, it hits just
yep.
right. Yep.
hmm Yep. Okay, we are just past the 2 hour mark. I irresponsibly didn't ask you, Lance, up front if you had like a time you had to leave, but usually, usually we try to keep it under 2 hours.
I asked Andrea
Um,
about how long, and she said sometimes it'll go 2 hours, and I had time, so no, it was great.
okay, all right, all right. Well, anything else? Any other big scenes we missed, or things we have to, how are we gonna look back at, to me, From Russia with Love is Connery's best movie. Like it's
Ooh.
From a critical perspective, I would agree with you.
Bold.
Yes. Yep.
Yes.
okay.
I think it is I mean, it is Cold War spy, just the essence of it.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
I know a lot of, the consensus is always, oh, Goldfinger is the blueprint, and I
Mhm.
hear that argument, but for me, yeah, From Russia with Love is just the high point of Connery Bond, I think. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I agree. Goldeneye or Goldfinger, Andrea. I know you have a soft spot for
Me
Goldfinger
too.
for sure. But it's also kind of the birth of where I think Bond starts going too far. And I, I,
Mhm.
I get it in the comedy in Roger Moore's era. But I didn't think Connery needed to go there. And so like basically Austin Powers took Goldfinger and just did that, in a way, like so many of the gags and the things, and I enjoy it, but it was the beginning of
This was the last
ending way.
really, really serious Bond until Timothy Dalton in Living Daylights.
Mhm.
Like that was really
Yes.
adhering more to the Fleming, the literary Bond, as it were,
Mhm.
than kind of what they had evolved to be the movie James
Movie
Bond.
Bond.
You know,
Mhm.
Yep.
you're right on there, John. This was kind of the last of that before Timothy Dalton read the novels and said, I'm going to try and play this character more to how it was originally
Yeah.
written. They kind of,
Yeah.
they did go off. Goldfinger was such a success. Why wouldn't you?
Right.
In the business of making money, so you can't fault them for that. So, but
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's, I mean,
From
I
Russia with
totally
Love
get
is,
it.
yeah.
No, I like Goldfinger is so, it's so up and down because there are just such like amazing moments, and then there are moments where you're just like, oh my god, like the gag is pushing this envelope for sure. Like Goldfinger, I mean, the classic scene, do you expect me to talk? No, Mr.
Mm-hmm.
Bond, I expect you to die. That is terrifying for a man in Bond's position. It's like, so you're
Yep.
saying I have nothing to
No
give
way
you.
out.
You just No, I just want you to die. That's literally it.
Yep.
There's nothing else. Like, yeah, so there are just like wonderful moments, and then there, Odd Job is obviously a big, like, oof,
hmm
like
I
there are
mean,
hard
but
things to follow.
we can be thankful for these because they've created cultural moments and icons and
Right.
things. Like it's fun. But I don't know. I will say I think there's one standout in between before we got to Dalton with Roger Moore, and it's my favorite of Roger Moore. And I think barring a few scenes, For Your Eyes Only
I
is
had a feeling that
pretty
was what you were going to say.
serious.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Very much so. It came off the silliness of Moonraker, and it was very much we got to ground Bond a little bit here. We
Woo.
kind of,
Yeah.
it got off the rails a little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Speaking of
You're
Moonraker,
right there.
I just got this.
What do we got here?
I'm subscribed to
Ooh.
a Bond magazine, and this is the new special that just came out with the latest subscription. So it's a little larger thing. And it really is talking about like kind of the science of it and the fiction of it and the
That's really
comparisons
cool.
Interesting.
between the two and stuff.
Cool.
So though I didn't love the movie very much and I really like the book, it's still pretty interesting to hear more about the making of
sure.
and such. But,
Yes.
All right. Very, very last thing.
Okay.
Daniela Bianchi as our Bond girl.
Hmm.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle. Where are we at? Thumbs up.
Thumbs up for me.
Yeah, I'll give her a thumbs up.
What's the hesitation? What it's high standards to live up to
It
in the
is,
book.
and
I mean, like,
we alluded to that at that time they were very much more going for people who had a look than for anybody who had any acting chops, and she similarly was a beauty queen who had not acted before, and
Mhm.
maybe that's why in like a scene with Kleb we just aren't getting those facial cues from somebody that maybe with a little bit more acting chops could have given
Sure.
us a little bit more something.
sure.
But
Yeah.
I she's still really good, so I can't complain about Daniela Bianchi. So
I think it all matches the tone of the film. Like it's the film is just more fun than the books. It is moving in, and just it's so I don't know. I guess it makes me not as critical there.
sure. Well, and
Sure.
that scene with them on the boat and that whole recording thing. I mean, she's
Yeah.
That was fun.
great in that scene. I mean, she is great in that scene.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
even when they first get introduced in the honeymoon suite, I feel like as that's their first interaction, their first character interactions with each other.
Mhm.
I think she played that scene also very well.
Mhm.
So
But did she
I
have, quote, proud breasts and the insolently lilting behind, the assertion of a body that knows what it can be for? Did she have
Yes.
that?
That book description was like, boy, We're really going to get into it.
You get a sense that Ian Fleming might have been looking at a specific picture of a woman at that point.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just going to describe her right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as movie Tatiana, I liked her by the end, but I was very unsure at her initial introduction, both
Okay.
in her initial scenes and because she's very clearly a blonde, where the book is like
Mm,
brunette. You
Mhm.
know, it
yeah.
had very, very specific physical description, so it was hard for me in the introductory scene to just be like,
Sure.
okay.
Yep.
But I liked
Just
her by the end. I
immediately
agree with you,
decided to
Lance. Like the
bypass that,
boat
yep.
ride. Yeah, no, the boat ride with like the whole film and stuff and Connery's little, wave bye-bye. That was very fun at the
And
end.
he's wearing the bowler too, Bond is, and that's just,
Mhm.
it's a good look
Yep.
for him.
Yep.
Yeah. They got rid of the hats, got rid of all the fedoras. Stuff.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Lance, thank you very much for coming
Hey,
on to talk about
Thanks for having
Bond.
me. I'm glad to chat Bond with you guys. This is fun.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Bond quite a bit on here, and it can always go on and on and on and on. It's reiterate our points or whatever on favorite Bonds. Never gets tired. So
Right? Well, in between books and the movies, there's, a lot of things a person can discuss. So,
Yep. Well, we're gonna have to talk, Andrea, if we're continuing on, if we're like, because again, the idea was we're covering anniversary, books and stuff that are celebrating anniversaries, movies, and whatever. And
Yes.
this next year we have 2 anniversaries, I think, as opposed to 3. I can't recall
Yes.
what they are though.
Oh, I texted Lance what they are.
for 2024, yeah,
Yes.
Goldfinger and The Man with the
Oh,
Golden
which we
Gun.
have.
Yep.
Yes. We have to.
Two very
Yeah.
interesting ones to dissect. Yes.
Yes, very different ones.
Okay. Well, that means I don't know the order of the books. I always have to look it up, so I don't know how far we are off from those.
Goldfinger is
Um,
coming up. I don't
I was gonna
have
say
my
Dr.
I
No,
don't have
is
my
obviously
collection in
next.
front of me, but I think Goldfinger might be after Dr. No.
Okay.
I think. Man with the Golden Gun is towards the end. That's one of the last ones I think
Yeah.
that Fleming wrote. That's
Okay.
But Goldfinger, as far as chronologically in the books, you're just about there. So
Okay. Well, Andrea, to let us know, let's talk about it if you wanna keep going. Anyone that's
How
watching
can I
watches
miss
this later,
Goldfinger?
whatever. Let us know if you're enjoying this series at all, and be a good excuse for Lance to keep brushing up on the books that maybe haven't read in a long time. Okay, so Popcast on the Rocks. Yeah, today we streamed on X, YouTube, and Twitch simultaneously. So make sure anywhere you want, go ahead and follow us there. Corey Barton was in the chat for quite a while in YouTube chat. Appreciate him jumping in and
Thanks,
contributing. Corey Barton is a comic book creator and a phenomenal one at that. He has a book called Kozor, which I've read and is really good. I don't know if it's currently still available or anything like that, but he's going to be coming out with a new book called Andromedoids, probably this next year. So keep an eye out for that. Killing the Flower wrote our theme song. Make sure you check them out. They're on music streaming services. Track Mouse 34. That's our friend Mike from the Anime Podcast. You can find him on YouTube. And Instagram. He does racing videos and stuff. So he's driving his race car around all across the country. So that's a lot of fun to watch. And then MJ Honeybee. We've streamed some with her. She's our friend MJ. She does Dead by Daylight streams on Twitch. So make sure you give her a look as well. She's on like 3 times a week. So that's basically my promotions. Lance, do you have anything to promote?
not right now. If I'm fortunate enough to be on here next time, I'll have something prepared, I guess.
Okay. All right.
But appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, it's great having you here. And Andrea, it's great having you here as always. We'll see everybody next time.
Sounds good. Cheers, everybody.